Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order this special meeting of the Environmental Advisory Committee on May 6, 2026. And part of the agenda is, at this point, to open it up as any public comments. Seeing there are none. The single agenda item is a presentation of the local climate action plan by the Penn State University students, and we welcome them. Thank you. Nice to have you here. This presentation is part two of the work that they have produced by this Penn State team. And the first was a community-wide greenhouse gas inventory, which will be referenced in this presentation. So we thank you for that. We consider this presentation an educational opportunity for township management, the EAC, and its residents, and it will work as it provides various ideas related to lowering our greenhouse gas footprint. And lastly, I would ask that we leave all questions to the end of the presentation. So with that, we can turn it over to our students.
Will you be going through your PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share that. And then you can just tell me when you're ready for me to advance.
Okay. So we're here with the local climate action program, and we have created a climate action plan, so a CAP. And in the fall, we did a greenhouse gas inventory report. And for this presentation, it's specifically a climate action plan. And thank you for having us.
Thank you for being here.
So my name is Isabel. I'm a senior at Penn State studying civil engineering.
I'm Mackenzie. I'm a senior at Penn State studying earth science and policy.
And I'm Ellie Brown. I am a third-year student majoring in geography and political science. And so before we get started, I just wanted to introduce some of the people who made this project possible. On the left, we have Chris Nave, who is our primary point with the Energies Programs Office, and he helped provide the technical support and financial support as well for this project. In the middle, we have Brandy, Pierre, and Kelly, who are our instructors for this 2-semester course. And we mostly worked with Peter this semester to produce the documents and presentation that you'll see later. And then finally, we have Melanie Arola, who works for ICLE, and they were responsible for the technology for our greenhouse gas report that we presented last semester. And of course, we have we worked closely with Jeff, Melissa, and Bernie, who you probably all know very well. And so to begin, our team was tasked with 2 related documents for McCandless. That's the Climate Action Plan and a Priority Action Guide. The Climate Action Plan, or CAP, sets the foundation. It looks at where greenhouse gas emissions are coming from locally across 4 sectors: energy, transportation, waste, and land use, and organizes that into a set of sector-specific goals, each paired with a few potential actions. It's important to note that this is not an implementation plan and does not rank priorities or lay out step-by-step execution. Instead, it's meant to clarify options and highlight where local decisions can actually make a difference. Next, we have the Priority Action Plan, which directly builds off from that structure, but adds one key element: real-world examples. Each sector includes a case study from another community, not as a recommendation, but as a way to show what these ideas can look like in practice. And this is especially relevant right now, as McCandless is already seeing higher temperatures and more frequent rainfall, which are starting to affect infrastructure, energy demand, and long-term maintenance. And because many of these systems are shaped locally, the township has a real role in how these challenges are handled moving forward. In terms of methodology, this work draws on local greenhouse gas data, regional climate projections, and existing township plans. We then organized everything into a consistent format to keep the documents clear and usable. Overall, the goal here is to support the next phase of discussion. These documents don't block the township into a path, rather they give a structured starting point for deciding what comes next.
Next slide. So as mentioned last semester, we conducted a community-wide greenhouse gas inventory to quantify the emissions produced within McCandless. This inventory utilized available data from 2024 to estimate the amount of carbon dioxide and nitrous oxide and methane that is produced from activities within McCandless's boundaries. I did want to point out that there is a formatting error on the current pie chart that is depicted that kind of does not accurately reflect the distribution of emissions from each sector, but we did catch this and it has been updated in the current deliverables that are going to be distributed. So all greenhouse gas emissions were recorded as carbon dioxide equivalents using the global warming potential values issued by the International Panel of Climate Change to estimate how much potential these gases have to warm the atmosphere. In partnership with ICLEI's Green Climate Cities Framework, we estimated over 174,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent produced in 2024. These emissions are produced from 5 sectors: commercial energy, residential energy, transportation, waste and wastewater, and agriculture, forestry, and other land use, or AFOLU. We see from this pie chart how the sectors generate emissions, and the largest contributors are residential energy with 36% of emissions, transportation at 34%, and commercial energy at 27%. And while transportation and energy produce the most greenhouse gases, we do propose climate action goals that address all 5 of these sectors. Next slide, please. So, as mentioned, we did develop a climate action plan that outlines suggested goals that can be taken to address the emissions from all 5 of these sectors. And we additionally align these goals with the EAC's initiative to achieve the platinum certification for the Sustainable Pennsylvania Community Certification Program. The greenhouse gas inventory that we conducted in fall 2025 helped the EAC renew McCandless's gold certification earlier this year. And the next steps to achieving platinum include energy use intensity reduction and greenhouse gas reduction. So our climate action goals highlight some opportunities to take these steps and continue on with this momentum. Next slide, please. So our first sector we have is residential energy, which, as previously mentioned, makes up 36% of carbon emissions due to the use of fossil fuels for heating and cooling systems, lighting systems, and appliances in homes and residential buildings. So, increasing energy efficiency in homes and residential buildings is one goal that we suggest that reduces emissions and can be supported through actions such as implementing energy retrofits in homes and promoting programs for energy efficiency barriers. Not only do these actions reduce demand on the electric grid, but it saves electricity costs and improves indoor air quality. And then reducing the number of residential buildings that rely on fossil fuels and renewable sources is another goal that we suggest. Investing in residential-owned renewable energy projects and developing financing mechanisms to fund these projects makes clean energy more accessible and affordable for McCandless residents. Next slide, please. So next we look at commercial energy, which makes up 27% of emissions. Similarly, emissions in the sector are produced from heating, cooling, and air conditioning systems, as well as lighting and other appliances. So increasing energy efficiency in existing commercial and municipal buildings is another goal and a great opportunity to reduce building emissions. Providing tools for commercial building owners to conduct energy audits and supporting municipal building efficiency through state programs can go a long way in reducing energy consumption. And then lastly, another goal, replacing current energy resources with renewable energy systems can help to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by decarbonizing the commercial electric grid. Addressing greenhouse gas emissions as the energy source is one of the most effective methods of reduction, and the promotion of existing funding programs for renewable projects in commercial buildings, such as commercial property assessed clean energy programs or CPACE or PA Solar, can help incentivize a full transition to electric or solar energy for existing buildings.
So another sector is transportation. The transportation sector contributes to 34% of McCandless Township's emissions, and there's a series of goals that can be targets in order to create more sustainability within this sector. So the first is by encouraging more public transportation. And one way of doing this is collaborating with Pittsburgh's regional transit to increase public transit use within and out of McCandless. So this would reduce the number of vehicles entering the township and decrease energy use, creating many benefits, such as better air quality, less traffic, and also just less road noise is a big one too. And then the second target is to support electric and hybrid vehicle infrastructure. So one way to do this is by partnering with the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure NEVI program to determine funding available for EV infrastructure. So that's also the second goal. And then a third goal is to create more sidewalks and biking trails. So there's been a series of actions throughout the township to implement safer walking paths, such as in 2019, when Town Councilman Jack Casey helped support the action of creating walking paths that connected neighborhoods North Allegheny High School and the businesses in the Wexford Flats, along with a walkable connection to the 46-mile Rachel Carson Trail. So through creating more paths, not only is it safer for the public, but it also supports sustainability in the township.
Okay, so turning to waste management, the sector makes only about 2% of emissions. And while that may seem small, it's actually one of the areas where the township can act most directly. Unlike energy or transportation, which depend heavily on outside systems, waste is shaped by everyday local decisions, such as how materials are used, how they're disposed of, and how programs are managed. A lot of the opportunities here begin upstream, as reducing waste before it enters the system through purchasing choices or material use is often more effective than trying to deal with it later. And because of that, several goals focus on source reduction. But at the same time, recycling and diversion still matter. In many cases, the issue isn't whether programs exist, it's whether people use them correctly. Therefore, improving access, simplifying guidelines, and reducing confusion can go a long way. One example in the Priority Action Guide comes from Upper Merion Township in southeastern Pennsylvania. In 2024, they adopted an ordinance targeting common single-use items like plastic bags and styrofoam containers, phasing it in gradually and pairing it with clear guidances for businesses. And that's what it kind of looks like. And what stands out about this program is its focus on prevention, reducing waste at the point of use rather than relying on managing it later. So while the sector represents a smaller share of emissions, it's one of the clearest opportunities for visible near-term progress. Next slide, please. And finally, we have agriculture, forestry, and other land uses. And this sector represents about 1% of emissions. However, its importance goes well beyond that number. Much of what defines McCandless, such as its tree canopy, open spaces, and residential landscapes, fall into this category. These aren't just background features, rather they directly affect heat, stormwater, and overall performance. And because of that, the focus here is on protection and long-term stewardship. In many cases, maintaining what already exists, such as open spaces and tree canopy, can be just as impactful as adding new interventions. And once those assets are lost, they're difficult and expensive to replace. There's also an opportunity to be more intentional moving forward. That means thinking carefully about how development interacts with natural systems, incorporating sustainable landscaping, and using design approaches that work with existing conditions rather than against them. The sector also is closely tied to resilience. When natural systems are maintained and integrated well, they can absorb rainfall, reduce flooding, and help moderate temperatures extremes, functions that will only become more intense in the future.
So there's a series of steps McCandless can take next. So what is next? McCandless's Environmental Advisory Committee can first recommend longer-term priorities. Second, we can establish education opportunities around sustainability. And third, we can also identify short-term, high visibility, and cost-saving projects for the long term. So, yeah, thank you for your time.
Just a quick question, doesn't, from my perspective, I thought the forests and everything would be taking greenhouse gases out. And that's, why we want green spaces and stuff like that is to take the carbon dioxide and stuff out of the air and purify it, and also with the canopy to keep the temperatures from rising and so forth. So I'm curious why you have it listed as a contributor to greenhouse gases rather than something that takes away greenhouse gases.
Yeah, I would say it does both. So the tree canopies, when we did our greenhouse gas report, it showed mostly a negative number, showing that it was contributing to a lot to removing the carbon dioxide. So you're correct on that, Peter, if you could.
Yeah, sure. So in the ClearPath software that they use, there is so it is a net source because of changes to land use from any small amount of agricultural production that could happen here. Your trees are sinking carbon, and that is reflected in the ClearPath software that they used. So I guess the answer is you're right, and everything that you said is incorporated actually into the emissions profile that is behind this. So, but if you were to do a deliberate initiative for like a young forest initiative, or a really large street tree initiative with many thousands of trees, you would be able to calculate that as a negative emission in the update to an inventory.
Yeah, Bernie has an active program of trying to help landowners establish more trees and so forth.
Yep,
Be great.
trees are the answer.
Just to build that particular category, in a lot of municipalities, the emission value would be higher because a lot of it would have to do with agriculture specifically, which in our community is much smaller. So it's also a big part of that bucket that you saw there.
Okay.
Which I'm assuming is like why wastewater is included in that as well. It's like runoff and all sorts of stuff.
So wastewater is incorporated into the waste sector. And when we did the report, it was more waste and wastewater reduction. However, we found that a lot of how you count the greenhouse gas emissions is actually outside of our township boundaries. Even though you are technically producing the waste, it gets counted elsewhere.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That would be scope 3. I don't think our inventory really kind of.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's very.
Yeah, and then for all the reason why I just focused more on waste was because I found that there was a lot more possible actions that for waste that might be, I would say, a little easier to implement compared to the waste.
So how did McCandless, how did we match, or how did we compare to other communities of our size across Pennsylvania?
So I think McCandless in Allegheny County is a bit difficult to compare to neighboring communities, since McCandless has a much larger population than a lot of other Allegheny County municipalities. But I will say I think that McCandless is on a really great front in terms of taking initiative to develop climate action plans, because that's not something we find super available in other municipalities besides like the city of Pittsburgh, which, through their sustainability-based programs, either through Connect or other sustainability like grouping initiatives, grouping communities together. I think McCandless is kind of on the forefront of like taking action as a municipality themselves, rather than kind of going with these other organizations, if that makes sense.
And Jeff, were you asking about the emissions profile too, or?
Well, that got to something that I hadn't even thought about. So thank you for that. But yeah, so the actual number, based on the size and our population, I know that, I thought when we first did this, we discovered that we were probably in, a pretty nice, we're in good company with one of the lower emissions.
Yeah.
Based on,
Yeah, I would also say, so something we didn't discuss is that we also considered industrial energy emissions in our greenhouse gas inventory, but those would also be considered kind of scope 3 emissions because there are no industrial facilities within McCandless's boundaries. So McCandless does fare very well to other municipalities because there are no industrial facilities within them.
Especially when you're looking at Allegheny County. We talked about that in
Yeah.
December when they presented the greenhouse gas
or
inventory.
Beaver County, or even Bucks County.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have a question too, like when you're doing it for McCandless, say versus Pine or whatever, and the population difference, how you're just doing it for McCandless, but you don't do it by per capita.
You can look at that metric as
Yeah,
well.
'cause that
Yeah.
to me is a metric I think is good, as far as what the per capita emissions are. Because I think you can find some communities with low populations that have very high emissions, and then you can have, a dense population, but because of how things are structured, you don't have that much emission per capita.
Do I remember right? It was around 7 or 8
I-
tons per.
I apologize. I don't have the exact number off the top of my head. However, I do remember when creating the slides for our fall semester presentation that we did have we had both the total and a per capita. And I believe that we compared it with Doylestown Township, which is actually where I'm from, and it's a very similar population and geographically very similar as well. And I believe that they were around the same numbers. The overall state was much higher, but that also is because it includes a lot of the industrial processes that you don't really find in a municipality of this size.
Partly the reason for the per capita too is that when we're dealing with the public, talking about programs, I think people understand it more, that per capita, this is what you're doing. And so, I just think it's an easier way to address a public issue.
And another thing to be aware of, so all of the great suggestions of different goals and ideas that they shared with us today, these are things that we'll be able to talk about as a municipality as we're working to sustain our gold certification with Sustainable PA and work toward the platinum. We do have to be incorporating new programs, and we do have to be working on reductions for greenhouse gas emissions.
Yeah.
Those are all requirements.
I was gonna say, your suggestions that you made seem really good for like scalability. So
Exactly.
even depending on what it is. You gave us lots of good suggestions of even small progresses are one sidewalk we're never gonna get.
We're working on it, hey. We'll get there.
Yeah.
Well, in the cap itself, which is very detailed, and it breaks down each category and each emitter of greenhouse gas, the 37%, 36%. And you break down suggestions in there. So there's a lot of takeaways in there that you didn't touch on here, but are available to us to move forward.
Yeah.
One of the things that struck me was the graphics about the expectation of heat in this area and precipitation in this area. Can you talk to that a little bit, and then tell us where you pulled that data from, or pulled that, those graphics from?
Yeah, so I pulled that mainly from I believe, Pennsylvania Department. They published a report, I believe, in 2024 around.
Yeah, it's from the last climate action plan. Is that we're talking about the graphs that have the blue and they get more blue, right? En masse. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's from the DEP's climate impact assessment.
Yeah, and it talks that we have X amount of 90-degree days now, and it's going to increase to, something that's.
Yeah, I believe that they estimated that you could see up to, by mid-century, you could see up to like 3 months of 90 degrees weather, which is just very scary to think about, especially in a place like Pennsylvania where we're not Arizona.
I left Texas, I didn't want to
Yeah.
come back.
I also did want to point out that our slides and the priority action plan is very like condensed in the actual report. We have in some sections up to like 4 goals that you could think about, and at least like I would say on average like 4 actions per goals that you can also think about. So we planned this in a way that you could get like you could no matter what you could pick something out of it. You're supposed to not want to do something. You're supposed to like think, oh, this isn't for us. Instead, you're supposed to be like, yeah, we just wanted to make our document
Yeah.
incredibly flexible for you guys.
Yeah.
As you guys know your township better than we do.
Yeah. So, and then there's both the climate action and both the climate action plan, but also the greenhouse gas inventory reports that we created before too. For looking back on in addition.
They pointed out, like on Isabel's slide, the commercial property assessed clean energy availability for commercial properties, and then the solar center, the Get Solar program, and they are always looking to assist municipalities. If Leo Kowalski and Sharon Pillar are, really, they're always looking for folks. So there are a handful of really very specific resources available in there too.
We may really have, one of our prior members on the EAC was a professor of sustainability at Pitt. And he did a lot of work with solar.
Great.
And at that time, with several EAC members and him and some of the town management, went to all the different flat roof places and everything, talking about solar and everything, and it just really never panned out. I think there was one commercial taker on that project.
Yeah.
And they spent a good bit of time on that.
Are there any questions from anybody on virtual today?
I just want to say thanks to the students and Peter for, pulling this together for us. It's a nice project that it really gives us some information as well as your recommendations for strategies that we can do. So I want to thank you. I know this was an incredible amount of time that the students put in addition to their studies. So thank you, Peter, for the guidance on, getting this team to just do an incredible job for the township. And hopefully it gives us a working document to get to platinum, which I know was the goal for sustainability and really some tangible metrics to work with. So I thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, just to follow up with that, a lot of what Bernie just said. Yes, thank you for all of this. This is wonderful. I did want to go back when you were talking about increasing energy efficiency within homes and residential things. Are there any specific targets that we could look at for like something residential to promote within the town that come to mind that you think something a municipality the size of ours would be successful at?
I'm not entirely sure off the top of my head any specific programs. I will say something I referenced in the priority action guide was that Pittsburgh had launched a residential energy efficiency program to support their neighborhoods in kind of being retrofitted for energy efficiency and solar measures. So I think that's kind of a good case study to work off of, whereas they're addressing their neighborhoods kind of on a smaller scale rather than looking at the entire city. So that's one program that maybe doesn't apply to McCandless specifically, but I think it's worth taking a look at.
Okay.
The other thing is kind of unrelated, but I do know that like the energy company will provide for free, like an assessment of your energy efficiency at your house. So it might be worth like advertising and encouraging people to do that as well.
I agree with that.
Yeah, the energy
Mhm.
audits.
If I remember right in either the priority action guide or the cap, I can't, it does bring up the Act 129
Mhm.
rebates and promoting those. Sometimes what you'll see is like a bump. um, In that, the other is that like solar co-ops, like I don't know if anyone in McCandless ever participated in a solar co-op organized by Solar United Neighbors. I know that Solar United Neighbors has been active in Allegheny County, but I don't know. We never looked into whether or not it was active here. Monica Carey is the Pennsylvania organizer for Solar United Neighbors. We've done things with them before.
And to add to the solar program, we just had a Pennsylvania Energy Development Authority meeting yesterday. And the Heinz Endowments has specifically earmarked through the state agency a grant for schools, solar for schools. So currently there are free audits available for schools, with the idea being, in addition to the Heinz Endowments funding, we would be able to at the state level do some matches. And really right now we're going to do a bond issue for being able to do solar for schools, particularly in western PA. So I share that because we could assist with all of our school buildings in terms of how they might be able to participate.
That program is in the cap too, the Solar for Schools.
Well, sounds like y'all have it covered.
My best.
Any other questions?
If anyone has any other questions too, you have our emails.
Yes.
And on our, at least on my behalf as the instructor, I want to thank everybody for being here. If you guys want to say anything, I'm just really grateful to Jeff, Melissa, and Bernie, who spent a huge amount of time with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time, and it's been so nice being able to get to know you guys and work on the cap and then also the report in the fall.
We were talking a little bit about it during a little luncheon meeting before this, but we were so grateful to have this opportunity to really take what we learned in class and apply it into a real world setting. Because there's one thing, one thing is learning what climate change is, but it's another thing to apply that and know the barriers and kind of like limitations of actually applying those goals. So we're all, I would say, very thankful for this amazing opportunity.
Yeah, thank you again for all your hard work. It's a ton of work.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mackenzie, Isabel, and Ellie, one of your work is excellent, and the residents really appreciate it, and the EAC appreciates it, and Tom McCandless appreciates it. You guys did a wonderful job. And Peter, thank you for your guidance.
100%.
Yep.
Dude.
Anybody have anything else?
There was our hands clapping.
If there's nothing else, then I can call this meeting to adjournment.
Adjourned.
Okay.
Adjourned. And can we get a picture of the three? Can we get some pictures in front of your like opening slide or something?
Can we just get a motion to adjourn?
Oh,
I'm sorry.
And
I always need to.
Yeah, I just need a
Yes.
motion to adjourn in a second.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
And we have a second?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you all.
Sure.